Hi, my name is Kelly O'Neill, and this is my submission for the Interpreting the Code assignment. The American Nurses Association Code of Ethics serves as the foundation for the values, character traits, and conduct necessary to be an ethically competent nurse. The code contains 9 provisions. Provisions 1 through 3 focus on the relationship between nurses and patients. Provisions 4 through 6 are specific to duties and loyalty. Provisions 7 through 9 extend beyond encounters with patients. Each day, nurses face a multitude of ethical dilemmas. It is important that nurses draw from the code's provisions to aid with ethical decision-making. One recent ethical dilemma that came to mind was an incident that I had with law enforcement. I work in the emergency department of a small community hospital. During this one encounter, a patient arrived in the emergency department via EMS with a chief complaint of a motor vehicle accident. The patient was the driver. The accident was evidently fairly traumatic, and the passengers in the other automobile were critically injured and flown to a trauma center. As a part of the diagnostic process, the emergency department tested the patient's blood alcohol level and screened the patient's urine for toxins such as opiates. Other diagnostic tests were done, including a CT scan. The patient's CT scan revealed several traumatic injuries, and the decision was quickly made to transfer the patient to a higher level of care. Soon after the patient left the emergency department where I work, law enforcement arrived. Law enforcement expressed disappointment that the patient was transferred so quickly. This was because now that the patient was out of law enforcement's jurisdiction, obtaining a warrant to find out if the patient was driving while impaired would be made more difficult. Law enforcement asked me several times if we tested the patient for drugs and alcohol, and if so, what were the findings. Law enforcement's requests for information started out friendly and became increasingly more aggressive. I repeatedly told the officer that they were asking for protected and private medical information, and I was not permitted to share. I stated that the officer could speak with my charge nurse if they wanted to pursue this further, and that I was ending the conversation. Because I was raised to be respectful of law enforcement and provide fulsome responses to their questions, this exchange with law enforcement was difficult. But from this assignment, I realized the way in which I handled it was backed up by the Code of Ethics. More specifically, Provision 3 supports my decision to protect my patient's rights by withholding information from the officer and provides clear navigation to the resolution of the situation. Provision 3 focuses on a patient's rights to privacy and confidentiality. Provision 3 emphasizes the importance of adhering to federal and state regulations as they relate to HIPAA. The HIPAA privacy rule establishes national standards to protect patients' personal health information. It also sets limits and conditions on disclosures that may be made of such information without patient authorization. Because the patient's personal health information is protected and the patient had not given authorization to disclose it, Provision 3 supported my decision to protect my patient's rights to privacy by withholding information from the officer. The second provision that supported my response to this ethical dilemma and provided clear navigation to the resolution of the situation was Provision 5. Provision 5 sets the standard that nurses must preserve their own integrity. The code details that nurses may be asked to take action that is in direct conflict with the code or with their own values. Provision 5 goes on to further say that nurses have the duty to express their opposition and to not compromise if it will negatively impact their moral integrity. In this ethical dilemma, Provision 5 supports my actions because protecting my patient's rights to privacy and refusing to compromise preserved my own integrity. In closing, the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics offers a framework to aid nurses in ethical decision-making. When faced with an ethical dilemma, taking a moment to reference the code will ensure that nurses make sound, ethically based decisions that lead to a resolution of situations. And upon review, nurses will be able to reference the code's provisions to support their actions. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I look forward to listening and watching yours.